Well, this is Ukraine's second revolution in 10 years. The first one in 2004 was known as the Orange Revolution. It was peaceful. This one, unfortunately, did involve 88, or some say even more than 100 deaths in the last week alone. Well, another country which had a revolution just before the Orange Revolution was Georgia. That revolution was called the Rose Revolution, and again, that was peaceful. I've been speaking to former President Mikheil Saakashvili about the similarities and indeed the lessons that Ukraine must learn now.
It's a very big event, not only for Ukraine, but for the whole history for Europe. It's both mental revolution. I think really the Soviet Union is falling apart right now. In mentality of the people, this post-Soviet mentality was so strong, overwhelming. It outlived the Soviet Union for 20 years. So actually it's fading away exactly these days in Kiev, in Ukraine, and it will have irreversible impact all over post-Soviet space. And second, it's a geopolitical revolution, because it's all about these people not only going towards Europe, but going away from Putin's Russia. Because what Putin incarnates is this kind of, we want to go back to the old mentality. We will be based on this post-Soviet mentality, and we will drag people back. And basically these people said no to the mentality, no to their geopolitical prison. So it's really a big change for Europe.
Do you think, though, Ukraine can survive as a united country when you have people in the east and the south who look to Russia for protection?
Well, I don't think East is such a big issue. I think overall, what really formed for the last several years, what Orange Revolution really did with all these failures, is that bringing together Ukrainian nation as such. Now, Crimea is a little bit different case, because you have Russian military fleet there, and Georgia's experience is that where you have Russian military base, you have trouble. There is a Russian presence. So it's not even about the ethnic composure there. It's about Russian presence there, the Russia's military being there. And that's really makes things very complicated. So, but in one thing should be made very clear. Russians are applying exactly the same scenarios as in case of Georgia's South Ossetia and Abkhazia. They distribute passports, they go for provocations, they prepare military takeover. Putin's scenario is very clear. Now, good news is that we all know that, what it is all about. And if, in case of Georgia, somehow the reaction was, not as strong as we wanted it to be, right now, people already know that. How it might unfold, they've seen that, and last time when it happened in Georgia, I was warning next should be Ukraine. Well, I don't want to be, some kind of Cassandra, but it's happening here. So the only way to deal with it is to tell very strictly Vladimir Putin he's not going to get away with what he's really planning now.
Well, the West and America has warned Russia not to get involved on the ground here in Ukraine, but nobody wants to go to war again here in Europe. I mean, is there a risk of that?
Look, it's not about, the point here is that everybody in the West keeps repeating as a mantra, Cold War is over. Well, it might be over for the West, but it's certainly not over for Vladimir Putin. Now, Vladimir Putin plays this in this zero-sum way. There are so many instruments the West has at its disposal to basically shut off, some of his instruments, to shut down some of his expansion. Look, here, Yanukovych's demise really started at the moment when the European Union announced sanctions. That's when it was an absolutely turning tipping point. And why? Because not because of Yanukovych per se, but everybody around him started to defect. Because all these people, remember in Russia and Ukraine, all these post-Soviet corrupt places, they all have things in the West. They all invest in the West. Their kids are in the West. Their houses are in the West. And they are in your hands. So when you talk, what can we do? Millions of things. You just need to take a serious look, and it's not about sending your tanks against Russian tanks. It's about sending your tax inspectors to your own banks, and that's what happened in Ukraine.
Well, he went on to say in a much longer interview than we've just shown you there now that he believed that Viktor Yanukovych should be arrested and brought back to Kiev to be tried in a long judicial process so that justice could be done. He also said he was confident about this country. He said it was a united big country which would benefit actually by being given foreign aid in terms of loans to get over its sovereign debt crisis at the moment. But ultimately he thought Ukraine had a very bright, a very positive, a very enthusiastic future. And that is the emotion on the streets here behind me here in Independence Square. People now mourning, remembering those who gave their lives for this revolution, but looking forward to a much more positive future. Yalda, back to you.
Thanks very much, Tim. My colleague Tim Wilcox there, and the team in that very in-depth coverage of the unfolding situation in Ukraine. Of course, if you want to know more on what's happening in the country, do go to our website,